Welcome to Meeting of the Moms, a place to talk about all the things. I'm Amy Rasmussen. I'm a teacher by profession, a wife and mother by choice, an optimist by nature, and happy by design. I'm here with my good friend Lorna, who I call one of my greatest cheerleaders.
Hi, I'm Lorna Adams. I'm a wife, mom, and certified life coach. I strive to embrace and enjoy each new phase of life. Here at Moms, we believe the world is wide open to all of us and that we have unlimited potential. We're so glad you're here.
Most other people are probably well onto this, but I am not. So I typically exercise 5 days a week, as you know. And so I have not put a whole lot of energy into hitting 10,000 steps a day because I know I'm working out at the gym. I know I'm doing my running, some walking. I haven't really worried about it. Anyway, I thought a little bit more about it over the last month, like, oh, maybe I want to try and do 10,000 steps a day. And so I just was calculating before we got on. I wanted to know how many days I've done 10,000 steps in a row. And it's not miraculous, but it is 9 out of 9. Out of the last 5 days, I've done 10,000. And then over the last 26, like almost all of March, pretty much, it's mostly been weekends that I haven't, or like 2 days a week that I haven't. So I probably had 5 days a week, 10,000 steps. So I'm like, yay, I'm going to keep going with this. But it's been fun.
Nice.
I get to see it on my watch and on my iPhone. I have an activity app that shows me how many steps I'm doing. So it's just fun to be able to go back and track and see. Yeah, it's been 9 out of 9 of the last days. So yay me.
Cool. Yay, that is super awesome. I know because I use Strava that often I'm surprised, like, okay, well, I got 5,000 steps this morning. Super easy. I wasn't even running or whatever. And so it's just fun to know sometimes and to be aware.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
So that's awesome. Congratulations.
What's on your mind? What is fun and celebratory for you?
Yesterday, I did quite a bit of sit down work, but I was careful to use the timers that I've been using sometimes. So I'll set my timer for 20 minutes and I can do sit down work. And then I'll set it for 10 minutes and I want to be up either standing or moving. And I was doing a lot of thought work and I realized, well, I can use my voice recorder and record it. So I did my walk and think yesterday because my thoughts are different when I'm moving and I wasn't talking to someone else, but I could still record my thoughts. I wasn't like crouched over my computer in some weird way standing. So it was fun to see how that worked. And it really helps my energy when I do it that way, as opposed to sitting and sitting and sitting. So I'm proud of myself for using my tool. It's always fun.
Good job. I love it. Well, and I do love your idea of setting timers for various things. I think it can be so helpful. And when I use it, I'm amazed at how productive I can be because it allows me to focus on this for 5 minutes or 10 or 20, whatever amount of time it is. I can just do it. Anyway, I love that idea that you have shared with me over the years. So thanks. Good job. Thanks for sharing today.
Well, and it's also fascinating to me that as I do that, it's like you said, it seems like I can just focus for that 20 minutes. I know there's going to be a break. And then I'm not worried that if I get up and go do something, I'm going to get sidetracked because my timer is going to go off again in the 10 minutes. And sometimes I can still stay in the same vein, like with the voice recorder. So it's just fun to try these different tools. Use the 10,000 step thing that so many people have been out there doing, like you said, and me with the timers or whatever, but to use the tools, see how they work and enjoy them, or see how they don't work and then change, right? It's fun. It's just exploration. So fun.
Yeah, so good. Awesome.
It's all right. It's cool. So we, before we got on to record, we have kind of a book study that we're doing with Brene Brown's book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And we wanted to dive into the topic of hope today because one of the things in her book struck us as kind of curious. So Lorna, since you're the one who said, this made me think, give it to us. Tell us what it is.
So as Brene Brown is talking about hope, she is saying that hope is not an emotion. It's a way of thinking or a cognitive process. And I actually want to look up Google and see if emotion is, or if hope is an emotion, because to me it has been. I can feel what hope feels like inside of me. There is like light and brightness, like light as in not heavy, and then light as in brightness as well when I'm feeling hope. And I think there's like excitement for what the future can hold. And so to me, that feels like an emotion. So I was just intrigued, and I need to do some more research. But what do you think about that part, Amy?
Well, I think we should Google it right now in real time while Lorna is Googling. And even like, could you share your screen in Google?
Oh yeah, I can
Because
do it
then we
that way.
can all see it. So those of you who are listening, we'll kind of tell you what we bring up. But for those of you who are listening or watching, this is often how our meeting of the moms goes. So we'll have something that's on brain and we'll bring it up. And often one of us will say, well, let's Google that. Or I love looking up the meaning of words. I don't know if Lorna loves it as much as I do, but she also looks up the meaning of words. And so we'll just dive in, look it up, read it right there, and then kind of throw out our ideas in this process of collaborative learning. Lorna is going to Google what hope means, or is, okay, what did you Google?
I did both. I did the definition, but then so it's on another tab. I'll show in just a second. So I used hope and emotion. So AI's overview says, while hope involves emotions, it's not typically considered an emotion itself. This is fascinating. But rather a cognitive and motivational state that can lead to the experience of positive emotions like optimism and joy. Any thoughts on that, Amy?
Well, so I do have lots of thoughts, and I realize maybe I want to say these before I see all your screens.
Okay.
And that is, I wonder if hope itself is not an emotion, but is more like the cognitive process, the practice, and whatever. But hopeful or hopeless, those are both emotions. So what you described as like, it feels light as in not heavy, and it feels light like just bright, and it feels good, and all those things. I wonder if that is hopeful. Whereas hopeless also has some of those maybe body sensations associated with it and that kind of stuff, because the cognitive process of hope is not present. So that is something that I hadn't really ever thought of before when I've heard this same comment that hope is not an emotion. But it makes a lot of sense to me that if hope is a practice, then the emotion that practicing hope brings in is hopeful, and the emotion that not practicing hope brings in is hopeless.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds great. But it's often described as a belief in the possibility of a positive future, a drive to achieve goals, and a willingness to persevere in the face of adversity.
What else? I like all that.
I think we could probably break apart all of those things, right? A positive future, possibility of a positive future, that feels good and exciting.
So one of the things that's coming to mind for me is, you know how love has been discussed as an emotion, but also as, when we talk about love as an emotion, we're talking about chemicals and sensations in the body, but love is an action word. To love someone has to do with how you choose to treat them. And so I'm wondering about that in relation to hope too, because all of what you just read has everything to do with action and very little to do with just sitting in that feeling of emotion. Whereas when we think about other emotions, so if we think about sadness or anger, it's not like, well, sadness is an action. I'm going to go and act and I'm going to go do sad. Whereas we show love and we can show hope or whatever. So this is really interesting, and it makes more sense to me why there's this idea that hope is this cognitive process and a whole bunch of choice, just like love is an action, even though it's also used to describe an emotion. So maybe hope is a complicated word like that.
Yeah.
It's also used to describe an emotion, but if we want to separate it, we can do so with some of those other words that I brought up. Kind of cool. And really cool and interesting. What do you think?
It makes me think about the three, I don't know what they're titled, but faith, hope, and charity.
Okay.
And those look like where faith isn't an emotion. And so if we're talking about, but hope is driving us to do things, and charity, you're saying charity is the pure love of Christ, and maybe that's helping drive us to do things.
So like all three of them are actually action words.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we do talk about faith, like, well, just have faith, just have it. And it's like, what does that even mean? Just kind of like, well, just have hope. Just feel hope. That's kind of hard to even figure out. These are words that do require a lot of processing, a lot of thinking, and then acting in ways that lead somewhere or don't lead somewhere, and then circling back and doing the thinking again.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that you brought all three of those in.
It says hope and emotions. Let's see. Hope can lead to the experience of positive emotions like optimism, joy, and hopefulness, which is exactly what you're saying, Amy. It's distinct
Okay.
from these emotions themselves. So that's kind of interesting as well. And then the next section says hope versus emotions. While emotions are often seen as fleeting and reactive, hope is a more enduring and proactive state of mind.
That's cool. So emotions are often seen as fleeting. I think there's some stuff out there about an emotion takes 90 seconds or something to go through a person. And when I think about hope, they're actually more sustainable and you can hold on to them. That's really cool. I hope you'll keep this up because I want us to copy and paste some of these things for me to continue to explore.
Sounds good. So then there's also then it has examples, this section. A person might feel hopeful about a difficult situation, which can lead to feelings of optimism and resilience. But the hope itself is not the emotion, it's the underlying belief and motivation.
Right, because they even said feel hopeful.
Uh-huh.
Because I think that's another thing. If you're writing down, I feel sad, I don't know if we say I feel hope or if we say I feel hopeful. Like when I'm thinking about how I would write that down, I would not say I feel hope. And with love, that one's tricky because I maybe would say I feel love, but I might be more likely, if I'm really describing it, to say I feel loving. So anyway, that's really interesting.
And even the other, like, I feel loved, like people are doing things that,
yes.
So now I'm feeling loved. So
right.
That is an interesting distinction.
So, because we'll say like, well, I really hope that everything works out this weekend, or I love the warm weather, I love my husband, right? That's how we say that, but we don't say I sad the weather. So it's just interesting even how the language works.
Yeah, very interesting. Hoping for the best, I hope so. So even that's interesting how it has changed the word in hopes for a promotion.
All the verb.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, but it's not like sad. We use the state of being verb. I am sad. But we do not use the state of being verb with love, and we don't use it with hope, which is why it suggests that these are actions. Just because I heard it a little differently, I want to have you reread that first definition. I heard you say to share a desire, but that's not the word. And I think I misheard it, but we just read it in case our listeners have the funk that I had.
So hope is to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen or be true.
So good. So because I'm an English nerd, everybody, the part of speech up there, will you tell me what the part of speech is for the first definition?
The intransitive verb.
Okay, thank you. And the next one?
The next one is, so then the second definition for the intransitive verb is not actually a definition. It says archaic, it means trust. So that seems more like a synonym for hope.
Yeah.
Is that how you read that?
Yeah, which is also cool because trust is also an action word.
I trust in you.
Yep.
I hope you. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, then the transitive verb, the first definition is to desire with expectation of obtainment or fulfillment, such as I hope she remembers, hopes to be invited. And then the second definition for the transitive verb is to expect with confidence or trust. Your mother is doing well, I hope.
That's so cool. Okay, so then, I mean, I want to dive into all of these things, but then below that we have hope as a noun.
So a desire accompanied by expectation of or belief in fulfillment, came in hopes of seeing you as the example. Or also it's expectation of fulfillment or success. And the examples are no hope of a cure, when they were young and full of hope. Then the second part of the second definition, that's I guess, definition of hope as a noun is someone or something on which hopes are centered, our only hope for victory. And then the third and last one is something desired or hoped for, great hopes for the coming year.
So interesting again that nowhere in that definition from Merriam-Webster's does it say an emotion or a feeling of. Like it doesn't say a feeling of expectation, but instead it's the expectation itself. Which that's also fascinating because expectation is also not a word we use as an emotion word. I feel expectation. I mean, so again, I guess with some of this, it's like you'd have to say, I feel hope, and then say for blah, 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 blah. I feel expectation for, you don't generally say, I feel expectation or I feel hope. So, I mean, you do say I feel hope, but it's just interesting. I think most often I might say something like I feel hopeful or hopeless or whatever, as opposed to just I feel hope.
Yeah. I agree. Kind of fun. So any other thoughts about hope?
I'm sure I'm going to have all kinds of thoughts now that we've opened this whole bag of worms. But I guess for right now, hope is one of those things where I've talked to you about having the epiphany at one point that hope is one of my spiritual gifts. And this actually explains a little bit more why it would be a spiritual gift as opposed to something else. Because is an emotion a spiritual gift? That doesn't really make sense. But something that you can harness and you can cultivate and you can practice and you can strengthen makes more sense that is a spiritual gift. And all of this stuff really, really supports that more. And I would say, having done this, I am more convinced that Brene is right, that hope is not an emotion. And I was not necessarily expecting to go there today or to find that place, because it's been something I've wondered about.
She says just a little bit more further on in that paragraph about hope. She says, hope is really a thought process made up of, and then she's referring to Snyder, who calls a trilogy of goals, pathways, and agencies. And then continues with hope. Hope is we have the ability to set realistic goals. I know where I want to go. We are able to figure out how to achieve those goals, including the ability to stay flexible and develop alternative routes. Examples are, I know how to get there. I'm persistent and I can tolerate disappointment and try again. And we believe in ourselves. I can do this. So just kind of a fun, I think that just is expounding a little bit more on what we found, and just fun to hear her perspective.
Yeah. She says hope is learned. And I think that can give us all a lot of hope. If someone thinks about themselves, I often feel hopeless, to recognize that hope isn't just something that spontaneously you feel and that's it, but instead it's something you actually can learn and you can cultivate and you can practice it. It feels much more empowering. And in the end, it feels hopeful. I mean, that's really funny to me, that just realizing that hope is something that we can learn then gives me that feeling more of optimism and hopefulness and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So there's still more on hope in her book, but I think it is fun. I think this is a great place to stop, but I just think it is such an interesting concept, and it is fun to feel hope. And so maybe I want to do some more fostering of what helps me feel hope and what I want to be doing so I can be feeling more hope.
Yeah. Love it.
Thanks for coming to Meeting of the Moms. We hope it made your load a little lighter. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. Send your celebrations, takeaways, and suggestions for future topics to momswithamyandlorna@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. If this isn't the right fit for you, we wish you well on your journey. Until next time, I'm Lorna Adams.
And I'm Amy Rasmussen. See you next week at Moms.